We have our second quarter financial report. We have our finance director, Doreen Chester. Good evening, Doreen.
Before I dive into the report, and it's in the packet, it's a very comprehensive report through June 30th, which is the first half of our year. Wanted to report that we did receive the first tranche of the ARPA funds on August 4th for $801,559, which is very nice. The Treasury regulations are still not finalized. I know we have possibly till 12/31/24 to expend the proceeds. I guess I would just encourage that the town waits till the final regs come out, just to be sure. They've switched things up in the past, state level, and I hear a chuckle behind me. Chief Wilking knows that. They say it's one way, then all of a sudden, no, you can't do it. So I'd really encourage just waiting. We've set the money aside in a separate bank account, so it'll be there when we need to use it. Okay. Also, we received the $7.7 million in bond proceeds on August 11th, and we borrowed money this year, the town, for the sludge removal at the wastewater treatment plant and for the Salem Street utilities, which was $5.9 million, and you discussed the opening bids this evening. The other important item of news is that we received our draft 2020 financials, and I'm just proud to say that it is, once again, an unqualified or the highest audit opinion you can have on the financial statements that finance prepares in-house. So I'm very proud of those, and hopefully we can finalize those soon.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. So starting with the general fund, just some of the highlights. Revenue is down in general. It's about $238,000. Some of it's because we received state aid last year, but it was a reimbursement for the first responder stipends. So I've kind of highlighted that. I did note, although it doesn't affect this half year, that there will be no municipal aid or revenue sharing this year of the 147.7. It was suspended just because of the economy. And that was prior to everyone receiving funds, so I don't think they'll change their mind, though. I think the budget is set in stone at the state level. We are receiving, or will be receiving, FEMA funds, more so in the second half for reimbursements for pandemic items. There's some loss, about $76,000 from income from departments. I think I put this in last time. We lost $32.9K in fire revenue because we're no longer doing the monitoring. And speaking with Chief Wilking, he has worked, I should say, hard to offset that in lower costs in his budget. Also, we have a very, very low, I don't even know, .000 whatever, 0.1 for interest. So we've lost $41,300 for interest income because the rates are so darn low right now. So hopefully better things occurring the next time I see everyone here for the general fund revenue, specifically since we did get the $801,000, that can definitely assist us in making up some of the losses that we're seeing. On a higher note, penalties and interest fees have increased a little bit. Building permits, $108,000 up from last year. I think everybody that delayed their building is now coming forward. We have two items of note: is the PEA dormitory being built and the Exeter Hospital Cancer Center are two of the items that have boosted revenue in those categories. And then we billed $27.86 million in property taxes in the month of May, and we recorded our estimated $6.6 million for the town. The rest of it goes to schools and county. We will know, hopefully late October, early November, what the new tax rate will be when it's set by the state. Does anybody have questions on the revenue for general fund?
Yeah, so I had a question. Thanks.
Yes.
The interest rate drop, but that wasn't money we were expecting it wasn't budgeted for?
No, we didn't budget. No, we knew it, but it's just, it will look nice last year. And the year before that, it was 133,000. Now we're down to single digits. So it's quite a difference.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Chair, two things I just wanted to point out real quick. One is that the meals and rooms tax, we're expecting to get a larger distribution this year based on the latest state budget. So we can anticipate that will cover the general revenue sharing loss, probably plus or minus about $100,000. Okay. And I was going to report on the health trust surplus a little later on. That's more good news that is coming in terms of revenue.
Good, excellent, thank you. Great, thank you.
Yes, I didn't speak to that yet, and the town manager will discuss later. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. They gave us a rough number, and then finance also has to allocate it. There's pieces that go back to the employees for their contributions, and then the rest of it, actually even retirees as well that contribute. So we'll know more when the health trust finalizes those numbers. They said after their audit in October.
So Doreen, I'm sorry, on that note, when, if you haven't already, if Primex were going to issue any dividend or any refund?
I believe they already have.
We got the checks for that last week.
Terrific. Okay. All right.
So we did. And again, that's more good news we didn't expect was the Primex dividend.
Okay.
For both property liability and workers' comp.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that will be reported in the next report I give at the end of the third quarter. Oh, that's fine. I'm glad you brought it up. So, better things to come with the general fund revenue. As far as expenditures, they're down really on the lower side and under 50%. In general, 8.4 million or 42% of the budget was spent year-to-date through June 30th. Every single department is almost under 50%. Everybody's taking it easy, I guess, watching to see what happens. Some things have been deferred. We're finally seeing some maintenance projects come in, but I can jump to that later. Also, we have a lot of turnover, and you'll hear me talk about that, or vacancies that we can't fill right now for whatever reason that is. But I wanted to point to the finance group and IT. The budget spent is $78,000, or only 27% spent. And a lot of that has to do with equipment. The price of the equipment has more than doubled, according to the IT director, because of pandemic pricing and what they're calling inflation. So we have a plan in mind. We've met, and there's some needs in other areas that we're going to talk about as far as munis upgrades and things that, are probably needed more so instead of overpaying on computers. In the police department, there were 4 vacancies. There was actually a new officer sworn in, and I believe that was recently. It was the beginning of the third quarter. So now we're down to a patrolman, a dispatcher, and the ACO that are vacant positions in the police department. So their expenses are reflecting accordingly. 39% spent in police patrol, and that was the 2 vacancies there. The fire department is 45% spent, 1.74 million. They had turnover toward the beginning of the year, and I believe they're all full right now, no vacancies. And then I want to give credit to James or Chief Wilking as well we saved $17,000 in mosquito control in the health department because they sought out a new vendor. So that was really good and helpful to the town. Down to Public Works, this is a vacancy that's been over a year, engineering tech for administration. you don't really see a big variance there because it's been open so long. There was 2 vacancies in heavy equipment operators in the highway department, and one was filled in early June, and that turnover, I believe, happened this year. Solid waste looks low. It's timing of the invoices from Waste Management, so we'll see that pick up next quarter. We are, as I said, starting to see more maintenance projects, and I just want to, thank the maintenance department for everything they did with the sewer project behind my office. It was hot, it was sweaty and dirty, and they did a really great job reinstalling the pipes and breaking down the ground back there. So that's going to be part of the expense you'll be seeing next time when we meet. They are missing an HVAC technician and a second mechanic in the DPW, and those 2 positions, again, have been over a year vacant. They post, but they can't seem to find anybody to hire for those roles. Debt service is the same as I reported last quarter because we only made the half interest payments in February. Everything, for the most part, for general fund has been paid as of July when we pay the principal and the second half of the interest income. So reflecting everything I've said, the general fund net income is 1.04 million versus 1.37. And I think most of that difference is, in some of the grants that we got last year that we, may not be getting this year until we start bringing the other things in. And I think we'll see a big difference in the third and fourth quarters with the net income. Are there any questions on expenditures?
Any questions from the board?
Yep, just on that, to use IT as an example, I would just be concerned that, post-pandemic, or what the pandemic has brought up is that a lot of things that were fixed costs have become variable costs, like merchandise or servers, where there's scarcity. So I think this is more a comment for the Budget Recommendations Committee, but I think it's going to be more imperative than ever that we don't assume that we have line items as fixed costs when they're actually variable costs. So a lot of the hardware it'd be a lot smarter to do cloud-based things or services rather than physical hardware now more than ever. So that's it. And then separate note, we took a check instead of a credit with Primex. I forget what was the reason for that.
So the reason is so we can, if we took a premium holiday, basically we would be reducing the budget, but the budget's already been set.
Yeah.
So that's why we take a check, is so we can offset the budget 1-to-1, and we don't see anything roll over like a budget savings year over year.
Thanks. I forgot that.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
Heading into the water fund budget, revenues are only 1.7 million only, but 43% collected, and the entire budget is 4 million. It's been discussed, and we did have the rates hearing, and new rates for water and sewer will, or have been, I guess, speaking prospectively, have been addressed in July 2021, where the rates have gone up, and I can report in great detail the next month. But beforehand, the fund itself isn't looking too well as far as what we need to bring in for revenue to pay the expenses. Water fund receivables, though, are looking better. The over 90 days amount is $13,000. There were delinquency notices sent out in April and again July 21. And we are setting up, it seems, more payment plans, double the amount, according to the Deputy Tax Collector Water Sewer Clerk, than prior year. So we have $412,000 in receivables right now, but $399,000 is current year receivables. So I feel like they're getting to be in better shape. And on the expenses, we're looking at only 37%, $1.5 million expended. We have 2 vacancies in the water distribution department for heavy equipment, 2 resignations during the first and second quarters that have not yet been filled. 50% of that job is distributed to sewer collection, so we're only seeing 50% of it 50% of it reflected here. Water debt service is basically the same. It's the half payment of interest in February. We'll see the rest of it in July. And also the reason, just to reiterate, we raised the rates in town, but this fund needs to be self-supporting, and it would not be so if the rates weren't raised to cover all the expenditures. Questions?
Thanks.
Okay. Sewer fund budget, the revenues are $3.17 million, or 45% collected. The sewer user charges are $76,000 lower than the prior year. Again, another reason that the rates have been addressed. The service charges are basically flat year over year. There was a new revenue added last year that is assisting, and it was for sewer septage, where we're taking outside septage at a price, and it yielded $84.8 thousand in revenue for the first half of the year. Sewer fund receivables, they're $815,000. We are seeing a little bit more so here for receivables than the water fund, because you can't shut off the sewers. But the town did come up with liens that we're placing on the homes and businesses that don't pay their sewer bills within 30 days or more. So we've seen, some success with that. And again, this falls into the same as the water fund, my comments that payment plans have doubled since last year, and most customers do have both water and sewer utilities. If they have one, they usually have both. So again, I'll point to in the sewer fund, there's only 19% spent year-to-date on this. Some of the things are lower, and the biggest expenditure is in December for the wastewater treatment plant, which we don't have the offsetting revenues again this year for the sewer grants. So that will be the big pop in December for those. So all of that expense is really deferred till the end of the year. We do have the 2 vacancies in the sewer collection, which is the other side of the water distribution that I talked about. And yeah, the debt service, it's $4.1 million, so I just wanted to talk about that. That's the payment that will be coming in the month of December. And there was an appropriation for sewer reserves for $65,000 to buy out the lease of the town's solar array used for sewer fund operations. And sewer fund net income is 1.82 versus the 1.79. It's a little bit higher, but that's just based on timing of expenditures in the fund, and still the rate increase was much needed for this particular fund. We have the revolving funds. I just want to draw attention to the cable TV fund in particular, because it's been running in a deficit position. It still has a small fund balance, which is about $64,000 as of June 30th. So discussions, need to be had about what should be done with that particular fund. Rec revolving, going a lot stronger than last year, $306,000 in revenue versus $55,000 at this time last year. The recreation director said things are still not up to 2019 levels, but they had a pretty good season, but I do know they had to close the pool down on Friday because of lack of staff and turnover as well. EMS is running well. Accounts billed year-to-date are 357, and that represents the 349,000 in revenue. There is a decrease overall to the revenue, but that just is reflected in the $25,000 we got to help patients with COVID-19 expenses last year, so it's really not a one-for-one drop. And they're in good shape with the net income at 121. A little bit lower, but I think things will catch up as things get billed, and there seems to be more call volume this year than last. And that's my report.
Doreen, thank you. And obviously, we can take this up with Mr. Dean at another meeting, but just back to the cable television revolving fund, why do you think that net deficit has been continuing annually? Is there something that sticks out, or do we need to dig deeper? Or?
No. I mean, you'll have to dig deeper as far as the revenue. We split 50-50 between the general fund and the cable fund, the revenues we get from Comcast. I don't know if that's a discussion that needs to be had. Either that or the expenses for the fund have to be, decreased because it can't support.
Right.
We can't keep going with the way it is right now.
Okay.
So it's either a decrease in expenses or more sharing of that revenue.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Doreen? Selectman Brown?
Last question, the septage fee, is that a projection or a committed?
No, that's committed.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Doreen, thank you for yet another thorough report, and I just want to personally thank you and the Finance Department annually for getting that excellent audit results back. That is a tremendous accomplishment, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.